I was kind of curious, given that the film is so many more of the conflicts are resolved visually than with dialogue. I don't know if that was something that was maybe easier for you, given your background before the film. But I'm kind of curious if you could speak to what kind of the new unique challenge of resolving so many of the conflicts visually instead of maybe with dialogue included.
Yeah, the question is, as viewer says, that as you are someone who's worked in visual arts, he felt that the film was an intensely visual film, but most of the conflicts in the film you resolved visually, and he wanted to know if you would talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. That what was very beneficial as far as visuals is concerned is that the architecture in some ways dictated the camera, and therefore it had a situation where we were, for example, going to, well, hopefully we thought we were going to film in H Block in the maze, but the authorities sort of put an end to that idea, and therefore we had to build in a studio, of course, and we built it exactly to how it would have been. No breakaway walls. All the gates, all the doors you see in the film are salvaged from other sort of prisoners. There were other H blocks which were demolished. So the whole idea of camera and dialogue was always for me. I mean, actually at the beginning, I wanted this to be a totally silent movie. I thought, yeah, let's make a silent movie, because in some ways, what happens often, especially in this frame ratio on screen, you can get so much more narrative on screen, because the frame is narrative, because you always got to put two things in that frame. It's so wide, so broad. You put two things in the frame, and 2 and 2 is 4. You're looking for connections in the frame all the time, as well as the linear of the film sort of passing through. So it was a case of I'm talking very fast. It was a case of sort of just looking to find these things which were already there.
Yes, sir.
Hi, great film. Are there any filmmakers and/or films that inspired you in the making of Hunger?
What inspired me very much was the subject. It's the subject what inspired me really. That was it. It was the sort of that thing that stayed with me as a child, and wanting to sort of. Actually, I don't even know why I was wanting this film, but it was compelling. It compelled me to make a film about it. And I haven't got the answer to why, but it was, I think, necessity. It was a situation where if I'm going to make a film, it's got to be a situation where it's a necessity. I don't want no nonsense of, it's got to be there's a necessity of why I want to make this film now. And particularly, of course, because 27 years ago when these events happened, and what's happening now, this sort of, if you can make an historical film that has reference to now, I think there's a necessity for it. You can actually have a voice, a parallel voice, one from the past and one from the present. So in some ways, that was my sort of necessity, or that was my wanting to make this film.
I think we have time for one more. Yes, sir.
I had two questions related to your writing and research process. The first was, how did you decide on the way you let us meet Bobby Sands very slowly by going with other characters first? And the second question is, in the amazing scene with the priest, was that entirely invented dialogue, or was some of it based on real statements that Bobby Sands had made?
Yep. Two questions. First, the decision on how you introduce us to Bobby Sands. It takes about 20 minutes at least before we actually see him. What was your strategy behind that? And the second is, again, about the long scene with the priest. And what was it again?
Was the dialogue entirely invented, or was it partly based on real statements?
Is the dialogue based on anything but pure invention in that scene?
Well, I'll answer that one first. The conversation is based on conversations and discussions and research myself and Enda did. What was interesting about going to Belfast at that time, as we did in 2004, was when we met the people involved in the blanket protests and prison officers. The articulation of a word was so precise. It was almost like pushing language to the fullest, the furthest it could go to make sort of understanding of their surroundings as such. As such, that on the other side of the coin is a sort of pushing the physicality to the furthest situation, which is obviously violence. So there was this real kind of intense sort of introduction for us, myself and Enda, to these people, because in some ways what it was that it was how can I say, and not get lost and come back here on Earth. There was a focus and essentialness to what they were saying in some ways. I'm bloody tired. 50,000. What's the other one?
The other one had to do with the way you introduced Bobby Sands.
Okay. Bobby Sands. You know, I keep on getting asked that question, and it's just like, you know, why not? Hello. Yeah, it's like a baton. The prison. Okay, you come in with Stuart, the prison officer, and then we get to Brian. Then we get to Bobby. It's just passing on the baton. What I wanted to do was get the audience some idea, some understanding of coming into the maze. An understanding of the texture, the smell, to build the environment before we met the main protagonist as such. That's all. It was very simple.
Okay, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Unfortunately, we have to.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Steve.